Hi, welcome to the Recovery Daily Podcast. I'm your host, Rachel Abasi. I'm a grateful recovering alcoholic and stroke survivor. And today I wanted to talk about um, just a load of college memories that came swarming back into my mind this morning after reading a story in the AA Big Book called Window of Opportunity. And the story is about a man who ended up had a drinking problem and ended up walking out of a window and falling to end up like, I don't know, having his head like swollen to the size of a watermelon, going to the hospital. He was unconscious for like 5 days, all of that stuff. I just it made me think about so many freaking memories when I was in college and things that some in particular that I feel like I shouldn't even be here today because of. So I wanted to talk about it and get that out of me and into the world, and hopefully we'll all be better for it if we can learn from it together. So um, in college, I chose everything, drinking over everything. So the first thing that came to mind this morning was acting. So I was in high school, I did really well in acting. I even won an award and stuff, Best Actress at a regional competition at I think it was at UVA. That's what I always say, but I don't even trust my memories anymore. But anyway, I really enjoyed it and I was really good at it. And I wanted to do it in college. I could have done it in college. I'm certain that I would have done well in acting in college. And I remember walking outside of the theater, I could hear people inside the theater. And I thought to myself, I made a decision that moment when I was walking by, I would rather drink than do that. I remember feeling intimidated, but that wasn't what stopped me. It was drinking. It was that I would rather take the easy way out. And so I didn't do it. And it's one of those things that, and do it meaning I could have tried out for something. And it's one of those things that um, I think of when I think of the phrase "not regretting the past nor wishing to shut the door on it." It's one of those things that I am trying to work through, not regretting, because I feel like it would have been really enriching to me to be able to do that. Um, but I'm in the position now where I don't know that I could be in a play because standing on the stage and being able to remember my lines and all of these things, I don't know that I'm capable of doing that anymore. And that's unfortunate, but yet I have been able to, in the past couple of years, speak to somebody who is in not in charge, but is a part of a players group. And I talked to him about my disability, and he said he's certain they could find a place for me. Um, so the other things that kind of stand in my way are the ability to travel back and forth. So I don't know. I don't know about it. It's also a lot more to ask my husband to drive me back and forth to and that kind of thing. So I I believe there will be a time. I do. I believe that it's something that I will be able to invest some time in eventually when the time is right. And I don't think the time is quite right now. But that's the impact of that moment in my life. I'm still impacted by that decision today that I chose drinking over doing that one small thing. And I chose it over everything. I mean, it was how I chose my friends. Drinking was how I chose my friends or how my friends chose me. And I I chose drinking over eating, over, I didn't have a lot of money in college, but I certainly wasn't going to spend my money on food. I was going to spend it on alcohol. And so that's what I did. I chose drinking over my classes. I've talked about that. Um, I chose drinking over my morals and my values also. And and again, more things that I need to work through not regretting and understanding that these things that right now feel still are associated with some regret are things that I'll see throughout my life were necessary. They had to happen in order for me to get here. I wouldn't have chosen a life of sobriety had I not gone through some tough stuff. I had to draw a direct line between my drinking and um, negative outcomes in order for me to be willing to not drink. Um, the reading that we that I listened to today was talking about how confidence in life was replaced by insecurity. I believe it actually said in the opposite way. So when you get sober, insecurity is replaced by confidence. But in my mind, I was thinking like when I was drinking, any confidence that I might have had was replaced by insecurity. And any faith that I could have had was replaced by fear. Any love I could have had was replaced by resentment. And any joy I could have had was replaced by despair. The reading talked about how once you're an alcoholic, you're always an alcoholic. It compared it to once you're an apple, if you're an apple, you can never be an orange, no matter how hard you try. And that that inability to become something other than what I was because I wasn't willing to do any work left me in this paralyzing despair. Literally, it was just a paralyzing despair. I couldn't do anything. Um, and when I finally got to my fellowship and started sharing about it to my sponsor, when I really was ready to get sober, when I was ready to do whatever it took to get sober, that decision to do whatever it takes to get sober and to remain sober, emotionally sober, um, that decision was what opened my ears to be able to actually listen, to be able to actually relate in. And I remember telling my sponsor just the depths of my despair. And she said, just like the reading said this morning, I remember feeling that way. And I was like, you do? I mean, I thought I was so unique. I had no clue. No, I had no clue um that I that anybody could ever feel the same way that I could feel. Um I was also thinking about this morning, the reading was talking about humility, like getting to that point where we have humility. And I thought what I wrote down was it's interesting to me that we can lack humility, yet be so freaking insecure. Like, how do you have ego and be insecure at the same time? But that's what my insecurity resulted in. This ego that closed my ears off from hearing anything that anybody would say to me. And I still have it. And I still see it happen when my husband will give me a suggestion on how to, what if I'm preparing a meal, how to do a certain task more efficiently or something like that. I mean, he says it in such a loving way, and yet my ego, my insecurity is like, oh, I suck. I suck at cooking. And that translates into an ego that's like, I'm not going to listen to you. It's really amazing what our complex minds do to us. But that was what I felt like when I was drinking too. When, well, like when I remember my brother saying to me, "You're killing yourself," when it was to the point where I was getting really skinny. I was starting to not show up for things. I was just killing any inspiration, all of that stuff that I just talked about. Um, and if I were like in college, I had my sorority sisters said that I was an alcoholic. And I don't remember because I was probably drunk, but I don't remember exactly how that occurred. What I do remember, which is one of those memories that I actually have a physical reaction when I think about it. I remember sitting in a sorority meeting. There's like 50 of us sitting in this chapter room. And I remember saying something about being hurt that they thought that I was an alcoholic and claiming that I wasn't an alcoholic. I don't even remember anything around that. I just remember trying to defend myself. And yet I was so extremely insecure when I sat in my sorority. I hate even saying the word sorority because I was in a women's fraternity, but we'll call it a sorority for just streamlining and making sure that one understands what I'm talking about. So when I would sit in this sorority and meetings, whenever I interacted with anybody in my sorority, I felt so inferior, always. From beginning to end, I always felt that way. Unless I was with my pledge sisters, some of my pledge sisters I also felt insecure around. Um, but it came out as ego. It came out as me trying to lift my chin higher than other people. You couldn't get in. I blocked everything out because I was afraid, I guess, of being hurt or feeling more insecure. I'm not quite sure. Um, it took years and years and years until I was 42 to reach the point where it talks about the next thing I was to lose was more important than the booze. And some of us die before we get there. And that's where I was. I was right at that crossroads where I had to make that decision. Is what I'm going to lose more important than the booze, or am I willing to die? Am I willing to die for alcohol? I just can't believe that I had reached that point. It's really hard to understand my mindset because it wasn't me. It was this other version of me that had developed. It was an illness that was growing inside of me like a tumor. Um, I know today that I can never drink safely again. I was obsessed in college. I was obsessed during my early first marriage. I was obsessed after my marriage, and I was obsessed dating who is now my husband. I was obsessed with alcohol. Throughout all of those years, it came first. It just did. I mean, oh, it's tough. It's tough to talk about because I feel very shameful. Um, it never occurred to me that something was actually wrong with me. It never occurred to me that I was different. Even when people would tell me, I I would defend it. I would defend myself. Um, I think there were times that I felt like I was too smart to be an alcoholic. I'm too, you know, nice, kind, innocent to be an alcoholic. And yet, when I think back to college, I remember being in that sorority, and we had decided there were several of us sisters. There might have been like six of us or something like that that decided to go to Hampton, Sydney. Sorry, Boris is moving the computer. Um, Going to Hampton, Sydney, which was the men's college next to where I went, Longwood College, which is now Longwood University. Anyway, we went to a heaven and hell party, and I think I've told this story before. Um, so when you go up to heaven, so it was in this house, this fraternity at the college, and I barely remember anything, but it was heaven and hell. So the first floor was purgatory, the upstairs was heaven, and downstairs was hell. And there were special drinks depending on where in the house you were. So um, we went up to heaven. I didn't care for the drink so much, so we went back to purgatory. And I spent a lot of time in purgatory. And then we went down to the basement to hell. And I remember it being like lit up red. And I remember there being like a bar there. And I remember having two sorority sisters with me. And I remember them saying, you can't leave hell unless you have a cinnamon, I think it was a cinnamon schnapps shot. So the other two sisters that were with me said that they weren't going to do it. And I said, I'll take the shots for everybody. So that's what I did. I took cinnamon schnapps shots for everybody after I had already just been throwing them down in purgatory. Well, end of the night, we're driving home, and four of us rode in the back of the truck. There must have been like seven of us. There were like three people in the front of the truck and four of us like sitting in the bed of the truck. And we were driving down like a two-lane road, like back road. And I decided that I was going to surf in the back of the truck. So I stood up put my arms out and I just started acting like I was surfing in the back of the truck. And I remember one of the sorority sisters turning around in the back of the truck and she screamed at me. Um, to this day, I still what not to this day, but for a long time I felt some animosity towards her, or I felt that she hated me or something like that. I didn't feel like she liked me. Um, that was my insecurity that looked like ego. It's fascinating to really talk about, to think about it and talk it through out loud. I think it's so important to have these types of memories and talk through it so that I can let it go. And clearly I haven't let it go. I that memory comes up all the time because I think about, thank God she yelled at me, because I could have been killed. It would have taken nothing for me to just fly out of that truck if they had been swerving, or even if we were all sitting in the bed of the truck. It was very dangerous. So for me to actually be standing in the back and surfing was just ridiculous. And I'm really grateful that I'm still here today. There's lots of other things that happened when I was in college that I'm like, I'm so lucky that nothing happened. I remember, and I think I've told this story too, about my sorority sisters and I all went to a deli. A deli? What were you? No, it's not a deli. It was one of those like all night breakfast places, not a deli. And we went there at like 3 in the morning or something. And I don't know. I don't remember why I did it, but I left. I think I was feeling insecure with the people that I was with. And so I felt like, well, I'm just gonna leave. I'll show them, you know? And so I walked home from this place. Must have been miles away from the college. I don't know. I remember hiding under a bridge where it was dark because I was afraid somebody was going to get me. I mean, it's just terrible. And I did that because I wanted them to pay for me feeling the way that I was feeling. It doesn't even make any sense. That is the just extreme nature of insanity that I lived in. And I lived that way my whole life until I was 42. I could not see things as they were. I saw things through the filter of my own insecurity and pushed it out. It came through me, filtered through my insecurity and came out as ego. And I made really terrible decisions that went against every value or thing that I hold dear today. The things that I sat and talked to my psychiatrist about, that is important to me and that makes me happy. This morning I heard the phrase about changing our goals to match our behavior when we're drinking. And that's exactly what that was that I was doing when I decided not to try out for a play. I was changing my goals to match to accommodate my drinking. Um, and I did it over and over and over again throughout my life. I was constantly bringing that goal down to where I was rather than trying to work harder to reach that goal. And yeah, it doesn't feel good when I talk about it. Um, but part of talking about it is letting it go. And I think that's why I've told you some of these stories before, and I'm going to keep talking about them until I'm able to let them go. Um, I think that you have your own stories that stay there. I know that because I'm not unique. And we have stories from our past that stay there. We have stories that even I have a story that I've never told anybody. Still, to this day, I haven't told my sponsor. And when will I be able to do that? I don't know. Um, I don't know. I don't feel that it's something that's going to stand between me and a drink, but I know better than that. I do. I know better than that. Um, so I'm just going to keep working. It's progress, not perfection. And and when I show up to my meetings in the morning and I show up here, I know that I'm not going to drink today because I'm reminded of the fatal nature of my disease. And I'm grateful that I am. In my meeting this morning, I just felt so much gratitude that I have somewhere to go where I feel like I'm sitting in the middle of, I feel like I'm just, it's the same feeling as I felt like when I was in kindergarten and we got to sit in the reading circle, crisscross applesauce. We got to sit in the reading circle and I would just sit there and listen to the story and I was in La La Land because I was happy and I got to just focus on the story. I was being entertained, and yet I felt like a part of something. That's what I feel like in the morning. It's like story time every morning. I get to hear people share about their experience, strength, and hope. And it helps me feel strong on days that I don't feel strong. You know, it helps me act as if. Um, it helps me do a lot of stuff. And I'm really happy for that. So today I'm going to no, I'm not going to try. I'm going to go for a walk with Autumn. I'm going to go for a walk, the same distance that I went before my stroke, which is 2 miles. Um, I think it's time that I try it. And I know I'm going to make it. It's just what are my symptoms going to be afterwards? But I'm committed. That's what I'm going to do because I really want to do it and I really think it's going to help strengthen my back. So I'm going to do that. And I'm also going to do some yoga today. I would like to try to incorporate a bit more physical activity into my life, into my days. I have all this time, I have all this time and my health is my focus. So I spend a lot of my day working on what's going on between my ears, and I'd like to incorporate a little more of what's going on with my body, the other parts of my body. So that's what I'm going to do today. And that's it. So thanks for coming. Thanks for showing up for yourself and for me. And I will talk to you tomorrow.